Sales, yeah. Getting someone to buy a product or a service, double glazing company or white gold, but I don't really like that because that just sounds like overpowering. I like to think it as, it's like, how can I find all the problems that you, Mr. Customer, have? How can I ask you the right questions to then say, hey, our product can help potentially here. Funny enough, I started with an engineering degree. I thought I was a bit more talkative than basically putting my head down and focusing on a project. So I wanted to get in front of the people and being more like a project manager. But then I realized the world of sales. So I kind of found this middle ground with this engineering consultancy company in London where they sell to engineering companies such as like Jaguar Land Rover, Airbus, Bombardier, and we used to place engineers. However, to get to these guys is you need to cold call them. You used to come in 7 o'clock in the morning, get your coffee, sit in this like small little room, probably the same size as this one. And what you would hope for is, because between 7 and 9, these head of engineering would just go to their desk and actually be at their desk, whereas they're mostly in meetings. So we used to do like 70 calls within 17 to 90 calls within 2 hours. Your fingers used to hurt at the end. You dial and then you just like, it used to flap up and flap down. It's like as soon as it wasn't right, it's like boom. The end goal was getting a meeting in with that head of engineering, and we used to go there, like take 3 hours on the train from London at 6 o'clock in the morning, have a 30-minute meeting, and then go back to London. And now you can do everything on Zoom, which is amazing. But most great salespeople never stop prospecting or outbounding. And even these guys in enterprise. But they get that good and they get that many relationships, they don't need to do 70 calls, they need to do 4 calls or 5 calls, and they get through to the right person. FinTech, the thing is, it's like, there's so many apps and there's so many people out there. It's like, how can I make myself different? And you're just kind of sitting there on your laptop, and what can I do to make myself look different? I think is still keeping to the basics. People might call me old school. I think emails is like so high volume. If you have a ton of leads or like a massive database, then go for it. But it's tough, especially at the startup phase. It's like you've got a limited amount of leads. It's how can I make the most impact with them? Or you can do social content, which I find quite amazing, especially in the last 2 years. In COVID, these guys, these sales gurus, shout out to Sales Loft. Those guys are great at just creating content of like, what is it like to be an SDR? It's like parodying, like making fun of people doing cold calls, or like, what does my typical day look like? And it is a very long game. And if you stay in it for longer, people enjoy watching the content. I think that's what's changed, and it's become a lot quicker than it was. People don't have the time to spend 4 hours speaking to you. They've got 30 minutes. They see it as lower value now. It's like, if I made the effort to take a train all the way up to like Glasgow, they're making you come for a reason, because they know that they've got pain and they're just wishing, or they're hoping that you might be able to solve that. But that customer is not going to tell you what that problem is unless you ask them enough questions. However, now, and I see it quite a lot, is people are like falling into the tendency of just like, hey, you're on a call with me, so I'm just going to like demo you straight away, and you're going to understand that my product's so super cool and it's going to revolutionize everything. People have access to so much more information on everything now. It's like, you are one app, you are a drop in the ocean, as they say. And there's probably your competitor that's done exactly the same pitch. The beauty about sales is you have a lot of exposure to different people, business owners, depending on what you're selling into, VPs, CEOs, C-suites, your typical SME, SMB. I like to think it's like 3 main funnels. It's like your hardcore salespeople. The guys that like to spend time selling and they enjoy being their own kind of sales rep, and they make a lot of money. Manager, you've got to put your team in front of you. So typically managers do earn less money than the best salespeople on their team because they've got a shed ton of commission. But they like to say, okay, so what can I do for my different team members? How can I speak to them differently? And what do they want to achieve? So how can I make Rob become an enterprise sales guy? You got the last one. I think a lot of people don't realize it. It's like operations. And it does impact a little bit into your managerial role. Is operations is like, how can I make my sales reps' life easier on their day-to-day? It's like with us, with HubSpot, I mean, the amount of issues that we have. But it comes into like, okay, so I'm sales enablement, and maybe the CRM manager. They're usually the ones that have the whip as well if you don't do your admin. And I think all the managers that I've had and are really good is they've set me up so well for my next role, and I brought so much, so many different processes and knowledge from my other managers. It's not all about numbers and who's hit the most dials and who's hit target this month. Every sales rep is human at the end of the day, right? Do your admin.